Before getting into today's story, I want to mention that this is a true story that happened to Jake Mink in 1996 in South California. And please comment and subscribe to this channel to keep creating this quality videos. Here we go. The Whispering Treehouse. In the dense woods of Maple Hollow, a place notorious for its whispering winds and shadow-draped trees, there stood a decaying treehouse. Few in the nearby village spoke of it, and those who did mentioned it in hushed tones. It had been built decades ago by a man named Elias Roth, a carpenter with a penchant for the uncanny. The structure sat high in the branches of a towering oak, its wooden walls weathered by decades of rain and neglect. Locals claimed the treehouse was cursed, a place where time and reality warped. Some said Elias had poured his soul into its construction, weaving a piece of his essence into every plank and nail. But no one had ventured near it for years. That is, until 5 teenagers, Max, Olivia, Jake, Harper, and Lily, decided to make it their Halloween adventure. The dare. "Come on, it's just a treehouse," Jake said, his cocky grin illuminated by the flickering light of their campfire. "Yeah, but it's that treehouse," Harper countered, her voice tinged with unease. "People say it's haunted." "People also say the moon's made of cheese," Jake retorted. Olivia rolled her eyes. "It's just an old legend. No one's been there in decades." Max, ever the quiet leader of the group, finally spoke. "We'll go, spend the night, and prove there's nothing to be afraid of. Unless you're scared," he added, directing a teasing glance at Harper. Harper bit her lip. She didn't want to be the one to back out. "Fine," she said reluctantly. "But if we hear anything, we leave." The ascent. The hike to the treehouse was grueling. The dense canopy of the forest blocked out most of the moonlight, and the air grew colder as they ventured deeper into the woods. The group carried flashlights, their beams slicing through the darkness. When they finally reached the base of the ancient oak, the tree loomed above them like a sentinel. Its gnarled roots twisted out of the earth, and its bark was etched with strange, spiraling patterns. "Looks inviting," Lily muttered sarcastically. A rickety ladder led up to the treehouse. The wood creaked ominously as Max climbed first, testing each rung carefully. One by one, the others followed, their nerves jangling with every groan of the ancient wood. The treehouse itself was surprisingly intact. Its single room was small, with a slanted roof and a single dusty window. A trapdoor in the floor led to a storage space below. "It's not so bad," Jake said, though his voice lacked conviction. The air inside felt thick, almost alive. The walls seemed to hum faintly, as though the tree itself was breathing. The first sign. They settled in, laying out sleeping bags and lighting a lantern. Olivia began telling ghost stories, her voice rising and falling theatrically. The others laughed nervously, but their unease grew with every creak of the treehouse and every rustle of the branches outside. Around midnight, the whispers began. At first, they thought it was the wind. The sound was faint, like the murmurs of a distant conversation. "Do you hear that?" Harper asked, her eyes wide. "Probably just the wind," Max said, though he sounded unsure. The whispers grew louder, weaving through the room like invisible threads. They were incomprehensible but insistent, a chorus of overlapping voices. "Maybe we should leave," Harper suggested, her voice trembling. Jake scoffed. "It's nothing. Just your imagination." But then the trapdoor creaked open. The unseen below. The group froze, staring at the dark opening in the floor. Did anyone touch that?" Lily whispered. "No," Max said, his voice tight. A cold draft wafted up from the trapdoor, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and decay. "We should check it out," Jake said, though his bravado had faltered. "Are you insane?" Olivia hissed. But Jake was already shining his flashlight into the opening. The beam illuminated a narrow wooden staircase spiraling down into the dark. "There's something down there," Jake said, his voice barely audible. "What is it?" Max asked. Jake didn't answer. He climbed down the stairs, the light from his flashlight flickering as he descended. "Jake!" Harper called after him. Silence. The descent. Max grabbed his flashlight and followed. The others reluctantly trailed behind, their hearts pounding. The staircase led to a hidden room carved into the base of the tree. The walls were lined with shelves holding strange artifacts, jars filled with murky liquids, bundles of dried herbs, and carved wooden figurines. In the center of the room stood a crude altar, its surface stained dark with what looked like dried blood. "What the hell is this?" Olivia whispered. Jake stood motionless in front of the altar, his back to the group. "Jake?" Max said, approaching him cautiously. Jake turned slowly. His eyes were wide, and his face was pale. "They're here," he whispered. "The awakening." Before anyone could respond, the room trembled. The walls seemed to pulse, the wood groaning as if alive. The whispers returned, louder now, and the artifacts on the shelves began to rattle. "Get out!" Harper screamed. The group bolted up the stairs, scrambling back into the treehouse. But the door leading to the ladder was gone. The walls had shifted, enclosing them in a seamless wooden prison. "What's happening?" Lily cried, pounding on the walls. The whispers rose to a deafening roar. Shadows began to pool in the corners of the room, coalescing into shapes. Faces emerged, twisted, grotesque visages with hollow eyes and gaping mouths. "They're trapped," Jake said, his voice eerily calm. "Just like us." The truth. As the shadows closed in, Max noticed something carved into the wall, a series of symbols and words in a language he didn't recognize. "Elias Roth," he read aloud. At the mention of the name, the shadows recoiled slightly. The whispers faltered. "That's it," Olivia said. "He built this place. Maybe we can undo whatever he did." Max searched the room frantically, his flashlight beam landing on a dusty journal tucked into a corner. He flipped through its pages, filled with sketches of the treehouse and rambling notes about channeling energy and binding spirits. "It's a ritual," Max said. "He trapped them here to power the treehouse." The final stand. The shadows surged forward, their forms becoming more solid. Harper screamed as one lunged at her, its icy grip tearing at her arm. "Read it!" Olivia shouted. Max began reciting the ritual written in the journal, his voice shaking. The shadows writhed and screeched, their forms distorting. The treehouse trembled violently, and the walls began to splinter. "Hurry!" Lily cried. Max shouted the final words of the ritual. The shadows exploded into a cloud of black mist, which dissipated into the air. The treehouse groaned one last time before falling silent. The escape. The door to the ladder reappeared, and the group didn't hesitate. They climbed down as fast as they could, their hearts pounding. When they reached the ground, they looked back at the treehouse. It was still and silent, the whispering gone. "Let's never do that again," Harper said, her voice shaky. The group trudged back to the village, vowing never to speak of the night again. But as they disappeared into the woods, the treehouse stood tall, its walls humming faintly. And deep within its hidden room, the altar began to glow. The spirits weren't gone. They were waiting.